I was stressed all the time, upset. I was in an emotional roller coaster constantly. And I was suicidal. I didn't want to be here anymore. I lost a very important relationship to me, and porn took everything from me. When I was in active addiction, I was so anxious because I'd spend 5 to 8 hours a day watching porn and masturbating. I couldn't even look anybody in the eyes. I looked all over YouTube for different programs and things like that, and I just I thought it was all bullshit right there. I didn't think there was any way that I could be somebody who could ever quit porn. I mean, that's all I had known. You get on that first phone call with people your age struggling, and it's a completely different ballgame. It was like a magical moment. This finally feels like home. It's just beautiful. I wake up every day and I'm just happy to be here, and I feel like I can live my life how I was supposed to and not have this anchor dragging me down into the ocean. It's turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself in my life. It's more important than my degree. It's been something that used to keep me down for so long and just make me feel like such shit about myself. You don't think you could ever be here, but it's very rewarding and very freeing.
Welcome back, everybody. I got a very exciting video for you today. We're going to be interviewing one of my orbital recovery mentorship students, Garett, who's gotten into the program a few months ago and just recently passed his 100 days, 100% porn-free milestone. Now, this is a super exciting milestone to cross, and so I wanted to bring Garett on today to tell a little bit about his story, what got him into the program, and then ultimately what shifted the tide and got him to reach this milestone. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Garett. And yeah, man, why don't you start off? Just tell us a little bit about your story, what you were struggling with, and how'd you get into the program?
Well, I started out when I was younger. I was into, like, my family was very religious, and I kind of had this. I started watching porn when I was like 15 years old, and I felt like I was always doing something wrong. I felt like I was always just living in shame. I mean, from when we were younger, you're taught not to watch porn, and or you're taught that any kind of sex outside of normal sex between like a loving couple is a sin, right? So masturbation was a sin. That's how I grew up, and that was always imprinted into my brain. And I started watching my mom, or reading my mom's Cosmopolitans before we got into the internet, and then as soon as the internet came around, it was just I got hooked immediately. I started really watching when I was in middle school, and I would come home, and my daily routine was I'd play RuneScape, and then I'd watch porn. I'd watch porn until my mom got home. Several occasions I got caught, and that was just demoralizing and shameful. At a young age, I knew I had a problem, but I just couldn't stop. The stuff I was watching became more hardcore, and just something that like a 15-year-old shouldn't be watching. I kept going, and as I got older, it really affected like my relationship. Just I was basically impotent by the time I was 18, and from my porn use, and I had to take meds to overcome that, and that was a very traumatic time for me at a young age. And that I continued to watch porn, and it just kept getting worse and worse for me, and it started to affect every relationship and every potential relationship that I would have. I graduated high school, and I was just lost. I wasn't really moving forward in life. I was just stuck. My porn use was increasingly getting worse, and I didn't really. Every emotion that I kind of dealt with, like I couldn't face by myself, I'd reach out to porn, or I'd use porn and escape. But nobody knew this, right? This was my double life that I led, right? My family, friends had no idea. And I really just kept to myself for a long time, and it really started to get to the point where I realized I needed to stop when when I couldn't I basically ruined this last relationship that I was in with somebody that I thought I was going to be with forever, and I just, it changed the way I saw her. It changed how I felt about the relationship. It took away everything that's supposed to be beautiful in a relationship, because porn does that. It just takes and takes, and I realized I needed to get help because I was going down a path that I didn't want to be going down, and I was like suicidal. I wasn't in a good spot. I felt just like a sliver of myself, and I had for so long. I didn't feel like I deserved to live, and that I was never going to get through with this because I tried to go to meetings by myself. The meetings were nice, but they didn't help me as much as what was needed for me. And I was in I basically was in the onboarding call with you, Nate. I was like, I was just crying. I didn't want to be in this spot anymore. It just took everything from me, as it does. And I was looking at this other program, and I remember seeing the testimonials, and I was like, it just seemed fake to me. It just seemed like it wasn't like they just seemed like paid actors. So when I got the opportunity to like share this and how I got into the program, I wanted to do that because this program has changed my life.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you sharing everything you did. I mean, I've obviously heard your story before, but hearing it a second time, I obviously relate with a lot of the aspects of your story personally. And there's some parts in there that you hit on that I thought were really powerful. I mean, for a lot of people, the religious trauma growing up is such a huge part of what contributes to this stuff later on, right? Of the shame that gets wrapped around sex. In my own story, I say that I half jokingly grew up with this message that the only thing worse than murder was sex before marriage. Part of the issue when we're growing up like that is we form all these beliefs, but there's not any adults around us who are asking us, like, what beliefs are you forming about what is being told to you?
Right.
We just, children just form these beliefs, even though they may not even be explicitly said by the adults around them. But that was certainly the case for me. And stepping through every single aspect of your story, from the relationship impacts and everything that happened, I first really appreciate you going to that depth. And also, I know, I relate, and also many people relate, as this is a very common thing with addiction. It's said that addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. So, yeah, I appreciate you going through that. I thought it was funny too, thinking like the paid actors kind of thing, and I thought it was kind of funny when we were talking about this. I was wondering if you could tell, like, what was your experience like getting into the program? Because you had a very interesting like onboarding and experience with like meeting me and questions about the program. Like, tell us about that.
So, I can't remember if I discovered the program through either YouTube. I was using this other app, but I found you on YouTube, and I was curious, and or either it was Instagram or something, but I was I was heavily debating. I saw your YouTube videos, like how to quit porn and all the things, and I was like that's great. We'll see. Because I had gone through like this process with this other program, and it was like I didn't feel comfortable at all. And I was pretty turned off pretty quick to that program, but as soon as we set up that call, well, it took forever to set up that call. You remember, I was like, I'd like to talk to somebody to make sure none of you guys are paid actors, because I thought it was BS. I mean, that's just, I was looking for the people that were truthful, and you hooked me up with somebody in the program, and, he basically, like, told me it was the best thing that ever happened to him. And I was still, like, wishy-washy, we went back and forth for, like, 2 months, and I was finally okay, I'll give it a shot, and I'm glad I did, because, and on that, we had a 2-hour onboarding call, and that was I mean, I got so emotional during that call just to have all this stuff come to the surface and be able to talk to somebody about it for the first time. Like you really led me out of the kind of like dark place I was in, and like I just it was just a breath of fresh air to be able to like get that stuff out. And yeah, once I realized it was legit, everything changed for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very happy. We ended up getting onboarded onto the program. Obviously, it was it was funny the back and forth and stuff like that a little bit, and I just think it's a funny part of your story too, because it was all that. Before getting into the program, which is totally understandable, right? People struggling with this problem, and there's a lot of snake oil salesmen on the internet. Like, I totally understand all of that. But what's interesting, I think, about your story is that was the entrance, but then here we are with what the outcome has been. So I think that juxtaposition is kind of interesting. And so I'd like to hear from you a little bit, like, what was it like once you got into the program, and sort of how have things changed for you after being in the program?
Right. I mean, when I first got in the program, I was nervous. I was like, oh, did I make? I still had my doubts, and that didn't last long. I mean, it was like the first phone call when you're with the people in the program is when I was just like, holy shit, like I needed to be here the entire time. You get on that first phone call with people your age struggling, and it's a completely different ball game. Like, it's just it was like a magical moment that I was like this finally feels like home. These are people I can talk to, and there's something powerful about having people your age that you're going through this with versus going to an AA or SAA meeting, and most the age group is like 55 to like 80, and it was just refreshing to be able to be on a call with like-minded guys. I didn't know anybody in the beginning, and I was nervous, and so I just tried to be as honest about where I was. When I was struggling, I was still having slips, and I wasn't really taking it serious. And it took me a little bit to get started, but I had the support right off the bat, being in the group chat and being able to put out any kind of temptations or anything that I was having has been a complete game changer for me. Just to be able to share things that are going on, triggers, things like that, have really been. It's been a lifeline. Like, I can't explain how good of a feeling that is to be able to know that you can just come to other people that are going through the same things that you are, and it's become like a brotherhood. And I never thought some internet group that I saw, and this random recovery group that I joined would ever have this lasting effect on me. But like, it's I've struggled in the program, as people do, but like I've also pushed through and gotten back on the horse, when I've slipped, and now we're approaching. I'll be 4 months on the 13th of this month, coming up this next month, and I just couldn't have done it without the support of the group and like the connection that we have. There's no way,
Yeah, man, I love that. That obviously makes me incredibly happy to hear. So that's the goal. People struggle with addiction thinking isolation and willpower are the tool combination that's going to solve the problem. And it sounds like you had that experience that I intend everybody to have, where they start to realize that getting into a community of people you can relate to who have your problem, many of which have solved it, or at least are much farther along this path, or have recently gone through the stuff that you're going through, it really does completely change the game. And we do start to realize that there's a core aspect of healing addiction, as is said, that comes from connection. And it's a connection that was never going to appear ever in the entire universe of possibilities while we were trying to combat this alone. So I love that you had that experience. And the other part of your story, right, which I think is great to share about what does a realistic pathway towards long-term freedom and recovery look like. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you know this because this is in the program, and I want to share this for people as well who may be kind of unfamiliar with this idea that in my 8 years now of being in the world of recovery and years of working with people, I can probably count on two hands the number of people that I've met who have gotten into recovery and then were sober and perfectly sober from the day that they started. What the overwhelming majority of successful recoveries look like is what we call progressive victory over time, right? It's normal to get into a program and then watch things improve as some slips happen, and then long-term freedom and sobriety starts to come out of it. That is the overwhelming pattern that people's recovery from this problem looks like. And so I really want to emphasize that and highlight that as a part of your story, that if I had interviewed you, like 2 weeks into the program and you're like, I just had a slip or that kind of thing, it's like, okay, but now you're this far into the program and you can start to see that bigger picture of like, oh, right. Yeah, that progressive victory pattern is what has happened.
Right.
Which tends to be the case. And so I did want to ask you a little bit about that specifically. Like what do you think changed between the first couple slips that you had and kicking off what is now turned into nearly a 4-month period of continuous sobriety from pornography?
I'd say in the beginning, it was just I'd slip, and just the feeling that I was stuck. Like, and then it wasn't going to get better, but like it, I kept just putting it out there into the group chat and just giving my shit to other people, and it just progressively got better. Like I was able to, and people will give you tips and hints and tricks and different things to keep you going on your path, and the encouragement that you get from people it just keeps you going, so like I had slips. It'd be like, oh, Nate, oops, I did it again, and like I would struggle, but then I would realize I'd get faster at like recovering, and then I can start the streak again, and I kept, even before I got on the program, I failed 1,000 times, that I wanted to stop, and now I had like a good orderly direction to take. I had other people that had more periods of sobriety that I can look up to. That's been huge. And just the open communication with everybody. Like, you slip, you admit it, you feel it, you move on, but you don't let it affect you like it did when I first got into the program. I was like, oh, I can't do this. I was getting frustrated. Like it's the same thing over and over again. It's not like I'm not learning, It just took the group to push me in the right direction and doing the modules that you laid out for us, and really diving deep into why I kept doing that, why I kept repeating those issues. And now I've learned how to just keep moving forward no matter what happens, and here we are, Yeah.
So it sounds like, the community aspect was essential, in emphasizing that point as well. It's one of those pieces where, I can talk about the strategy used in the program, the strategy that the course follows through. It's very challenging sometimes to talk to people about the value of a community, because until you're inside of one and you really experience what is it like to be a part of a truly meaningful community with people who care about you, who are engaged, who are reaching out, who are truly there to support you, instead of this like fake engaged community that a lot of people get, where, people are just throwing surface level platitudes like good job, good work,
right,
hey, better luck next time. When you get real connection in a real community, it truly does change everything. And so I'm really glad that you got to have that experience here inside of the program. And I'm curious as well, like outside of the community, was there anything that you encountered in terms of the course or that kind of material that you felt was like very positively impactful on you? Or it could be, some of your favorite kind of takeaways from the material.
So in the beginning, I think it's like module 1 or 2. It talks about like why I needed to, like when I was using, I was using porn as a tool to help me get out of the mental situation that I was in. I came to find out that me using porn, I was trying to help myself. like climb out of the hole. Like the void that I had left, like the void that's been like left in me since either childhood or something. But there's always a reason why we give into like into addiction, and like that's the stuff you said about porn being a tool. It still messes with my mind that I was trying to help myself get through the loneliness, the low self-esteem, the not really being able to express my emotions when I was younger. It taught me that there was something causing all this trauma, right? So now I'm on the journey of trying to uncover what that is. Just every time you go into a module, you learn something new, you're blown away. And it's just, it seems to, everything in the program has, it's always there when I need it. It's always, every issue that I'm going through, there's always a module on it, like dating, relationships, inner child trauma, trauma from childhood and how to handle that better, and which I still need to dive into. But I've learned so much. I learned that there was a reason I've been acting out for 20 years. That I'm emotionally unstable because of certain things that happened in my childhood, and I'm just excited to continue the journey to really diving deeper and figuring that out. And the material provides that.
Beautifully said. Yeah, one of those first big insights, right? That porn is not actually my problem. Is the very first thing that you guys go through in the program, and something I've talked about on my channel here a little bit as well. That realization of like, man, the reason why this keeps coming back is because it's doing something for me. It's a solution to a problem that I have that creates its own problems. And that shift in perspective opens up a doorway to begin to address the emotional roots of the problem. And with where you're at in the program, there's still more to go, right? Like this is when I talk about this program being a comprehensive and holistic program of recovery, I think you now know what I mean. And why this program is the length that it is because there's a lot of ground to cover. And as you now know firsthand, this is not a like superficial, there is no superficial solution to this problem. Getting down into the weeds takes some time, and it takes some hard feelings, takes some vulnerability, and it takes a hell of a lot of community and support. That was my experience, and that's why it's, in the program the way that it is. So my next question for you would be, now that you are at the place you are inside of the program, approaching this 3.5-4 month mark of sobriety, like what has changed positively for you? Beyond just the number of days sober.
I don't even know where to begin, and I'm like tearing up just thinking about it. But my life is so much better than it used to be as far as just my anxiety levels. Like when I was in active addiction, I was so anxious because I'd spend at the worst it was like 5 to 8 hours a day watching porn and masturbating. And I couldn't even look anybody in the eyes. I was just so ashamed to even be out in public. I wanted to crawl out of my skin all the time. I just didn't want to talk to anybody at work or anything like that. I felt disgusting all the time. And when you feel disgusted with yourself all the time, you don't really want to be out in public and doing things or being around people, even being around my family. I felt like a shell of a person. I didn't deserve to be there. If they only knew what I was up to, they would judge me, and I would just, it was just a really bad spot to be in. I didn't like looking myself in the mirror. I was constantly biting my fingernails. I was stressed all the time, upset. I was in an emotional roller coaster constantly. I was suicidal. I didn't want to be here anymore. It was not. I lost a very important relationship to me, and porn took everything from me, and it changed the way I saw people. And just being away from it, even the first month, it's just a breath of fresh air, really. You just start to feel free, and 2 months in, all the little things that used to piss me off and get under my skin and get me aggravated and agitated didn't bother me as much. Like my fingernails grew back, which I've never had fingernails in my entire life, really, and like they grew back. Like if that explains anything, that's just the state that I'm in right now. It's just beautiful. I wake up every day and I'm just happy to be here, and I feel like I can live my life how I was supposed to and not have this anchor dragging me down into the ocean. It's just a good place to be, and I'm nowhere near fixed, right? In this journey, you're not. It doesn't end, but like where I'm at right now, it's the progress I've made just for myself, and it's been phenomenal, and take into effect like how I can look at a woman and not sexualize her, and not be hyper focused on that, and actually have a conversation with another human being and treat them as another human being is just something I never thought I could do. I didn't think I struggled with even going to the gym and without over sexualizing every female that was in the gym. Now I can do that, and it's a beautiful thing. You don't think you could ever be here, but it's very rewarding and very freeing, I guess is the only way I could put it. I finally can live life how I want.
Yeah, I love that. Well said. It's hard to ask for a better outcome than moving from suicidal to waking up every day happy to be here, and to move from lustful objectification and extreme anxiety to now having your fingernails back and feeling free from that sort of addictive, lustful mentality that used to dominate your life. So really appreciate you saying that. It's really amazing to hear. And so I kind of two questions for you here. One would just be like, what are some of the challenges that you had through the last 4 or 5 months, and what were some of the things that got you through those?
So I had used like blockers on my phone, and blockers on your technology to me is one of the most important things that you can have. But there were times where I had set my GPS blocker up for when I was out and about, I could access things, and there were times where in the past I would have just immediately gone to a porn site or something like that, and I started to in the beginning I did have slips, but then once I kind of figured it out, it became like if I was tempted, that temptation no longer like bugged me and just wanted me to really wanted me to like screw up. I wouldn't give in. Like there were basically I would go to Google and I'd try and type something in, and like something in my brain would tell me that I don't need this, right? So that's where I'm at. If I in the beginning though, like I would have slips with pornography, and the hardest thing for me was just saying no. One thing that they tell us in SAA, like once you get on that highway of first you get on the on-ramp to using, right? And then once you get on the on-ramp to the highway, once you're on the highway, you're in the trance, and that's the hardest part about this addiction, and like I have learned from being in this program how to handle those temptations and those triggers, like I'm better equipped to be able to push those away, and I never had that before. And now I can just, like I had a browser on my smartwatch, and I just got a brand new smartwatch, and like my old pattern started to kick in where I was going to go right to the browser and I was going to type something inappropriate into the browser, and I like stopped, and like immediately I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like this would have never happened in the past. I would have used, and I would have just binged for the next 2-3 days, and I was able to just be like, what am I doing, right? And so I deleted the app. And then I posted in the group chat and I said, "Hey guys, this is what I'm going through. Like, you got any suggestions?" And people will give their opinions and what they think, and they will congratulate me for not screwing up, and not giving in. And it's just I've had several opportunities where I could have been tempted, and past Garett would have given in. And the one time I was about to slip, and I called Duncan, who's also in the program, and he's like, "Get out of your house right now, go do something immediately." And I was like, "All right, fair enough, I'm out." So I left the house and I didn't use, but if I didn't have that community aspect, that would have just never happened for me. So just learning how to curve your temptations and your triggers is the hardest thing, but having people you can lean on is just makes it easier to manage.
Yeah, seems like all roads lead back to community, it turns out,
Yeah.
and connection.
Yeah.
And the power that has. I love that. Last question for you here would be, what would you tell to somebody who was sitting on the fence thinking about joining the program?
I mean, I had looked all over YouTube for different programs and things like that, and I just I didn't believe. I thought it was all bullshit right there. I didn't think there was any way that I could be somebody who could ever quit porn. I mean, that's all I had known in my life. I didn't think there was any way to ever change that. I just want you to know that you're not stuck, but there's certain things that can help you. One being this program. It's not it's not a joke. It's not we're not paid actors. We're people that have been struggling just like you. And some people were in some very dark spots. And where I'm at right now is, I'm sure, where you want to be, just away from porn, living a great life. Like I would have told myself to quit messing around. It took me a while to get in the program. I still had to feel out the kinks and all the, how I felt about it. And, I would have told myself, from what I know now, I would have told myself immediately to click the button to join. And and to not be so afraid, because I was afraid for quite a long time, trying to decide if this was really the right fit for me and if it could really help me. And I'm glad I did, because here I am, and it's turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself in my life. It's more important than my degree. And it's been something that used to, keep me down for so long and just make me feel like such shit about myself is finally manageable. That's priceless. And I would just encourage anybody that's still on the fence and debating, if they want to join or not. You just got to think, if you can continue to be where you're at, or does it affect you so much to where you feel like something needs to change before something drastic happens. And if you're in that boat, I just encourage you to dig deep inside yourself and realize you don't want to be in that position anymore. And there's other things that you can do for yourself. Number one, joining this program and coming into our brotherhood, and just being somebody that we can help and continue to push in the right direction to get free of this. You don't know how important community is until you're in the community. And it just changed my life. And I hope if you're watching this, I hope you can really do something positive for yourself, and come join us.
Yeah. That was beautifully said. Well done. I love that. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Good.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the program, and I know there's still more to come. I love being able to walk by your side through this journey and getting you to where you are today. And as they say, the best is yet to come. There's we're entering into a new chapter of recovery where there are some unique challenges and difficulties, which we've talked about.
Hmm.
We're getting sober means you feel better, which also means you kind of feel everything better. And there's some opportunities now to dive into some of the things that were not accessible, emotionally speaking, while we were acting out, in
Right.
active addiction, that are now, we're really able to connect with those. So
Right.
I'm very much excited for what's to come, and I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your day to hop on here and share about what your experience in the program has been like. And yeah, I really hope that somebody out there resonates with your story, and this is the thing that gives them the leverage they need to change their life. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Garrett, and
Yeah.
we can go ahead and wrap it up here.
Okay. All right. Thank you.